I wanted to make this a kind of wrap-up conclusion video for the Come Find Me project. First things first, I wanted to thank you for even attempting the videos, even if you just saw little snippets and you're like, wow, that's fucked up, and you just stopped watching them, that's fine. I still thank you for giving it a try anyway. For those who actually watched the entire thing, I'm sending you a huge thank you. I understand Come Find Me is very heavy material. It's a lot to get through. It's cringy, it's bitter. It has such bad parts to it. There is good too, but it has such bad parts to it. Most of it is heavy. So I understand it's a difficult thing to listen to. It's awkward. It's definitely out of most people's comfort zones, I think. So thank you for being brave enough to sludge through all of that and get to this conclusion video. Please excuse my gaze, and you're probably gonna hear my computer. I have notes. Unlike the intro video, I'm gonna try to follow my notes and not ramble too hard, but no promises, except I'll try. All right. So I wanted to give some background on the writing process behind Come Find Me. As I mentioned in the introduction, I had been writing Come Find Me for years, not diligently, but it has been quite a few years span, starting it, trying to figure out how to organize it, how to organize my thoughts, where I wanted it to go, what was the purpose of it. All of that took a really long time for me to sort out. Come Find Me in its final form is still not perfect in the sense that, well, it'll never be perfect, but it's not 100% what I want it to be, but it's good enough to share. That's why I shared it, as I mentioned in the intro. But I wanted to mention that the main purpose of writing Come Find Me changed 3 distinct times. Please excuse the noises, by the way. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Excuse the noises that were in the videos themselves. It made me so sad that they were there. I was editing. At this time, I'm still editing the videos. It's been months. It's awful. I'm sorry. But life gets in the way, it really does. And I have trouble sticking to it. It's hard to sit there for hours and hours editing everything and putting all the pictures in, and it takes a long time. So thank you for your patience with that. So I apologize for the sounds, the background noises. Right now I am filming during the day. I usually film at night, but I woke up this morning and I was just like, you need to just do this, because I've been dragging my feet on this conclusion video for a long time, because I wanted it to be as comprehensive as I can make it so that it's understandable and you get where I'm coming from, trying to fill in the gaps from the story and things like that. So I was stressing myself out about it, and then today I was just like, you know what, you're gonna do it. So that's where I am now. All right, sorry, back to, I already got off the notes, that's okay, we're back on track. So 3 main purposes. The very first reason that I was writing Come Find Me in the first place was I was trying to be brave. So as I mentioned in the story too, and you probably notice anyway, I'm a very shy person. I have trouble expressing myself, especially my emotions. My family is all like that. We all don't say I love you. We don't do any of that. We don't hug, really. We do a little more now because my parents are older and they're getting a little more mushy-gushy, but especially when we were younger, that wasn't a thing. We used to kiss each other goodnight when I was very, very little. And then it stopped because we just felt awkward about it. We're just the people that don't express our emotions very well verbally to each other. Or even in action. Sometimes we kind of do it subtly. Like, we know we love each other, but we can't tell each other that. It's strange. But that's just how we were raised. That's how we are. So I wanted to express how I felt for this young man, the young man I was talking to in Come Find Me. I wanted to express it in a way that I was most comfortable expressing emotions. And my personal, most comfortable way to do that is through writing. I've always been like that. It's not like I write super well or anything. It's just I feel more comfortable saying what I have to say when I write it down versus telling it to you. Because when I'm speaking verbally, as you can tell, I kind of fumble over my words and I have trouble picking up where I left off, and I want to say too much. So when I write it down, I can kind of jumble it at first in the first draft, and then I can kind of cut it back until I kind of sort of get out my message. I have always been like that, like I said, and it kind of really started, I think part of the inspiration for writing to him like that was I would write letters for people at work. So what happened was my very first job, it started with my first job. I was there for 6 years, and it was my first job, so as you can imagine, it's probably not the best job in the world, and it wasn't. But because I had worked there for so long, and I don't know how to express myself verbally for the most part, at least with feelings, I wanted to write certain people in the company a letter each, a personal letter. So I literally like typed it out and everything because my handwriting's bad, and I typed it out so they could read it, and I left it in a little envelope near their stuff. I remember one girl looking at me like, "Are you stealing my shit?" And I'm like, "I don't want your crap, lady. Like, no, I'm not. I'm just putting a letter there saying you're cool. Like, sorry, wow." But yeah, it's a weird thing to do. Most people probably don't do that, but I do that. So that's kind of how it started. I sent them letters, and I didn't write any letters for people I didn't like, because there were definitely people I didn't like, just saying. And I did not leave letters for them, so they were letterless. I think that spoke volumes in and of itself. I didn't want to write anything I would regret later, even if it felt good at the time, you know what I mean? But I think them not having a letter was enough to get the point across. But me using those letters kind of gave, I feel like in the background of my mind, I was kind of like, yep, this is how we're doing it. So instead of a letter to him, this is kind of like a giant letter to him. So I wrote the book telling him how I felt about him, but at the same time, I wanted him to understand that my shyness wasn't his fault, that part of my shyness it's not all about the molestation. It's hard to differentiate what would normally be me and what wouldn't. It's one of those things where it's an experience, and like every experience, it affects you in some way. So it's hard to really separate yourself from an experience, because how you reacted to it is you in a way, but at the same time, some of it's understandable. Like me being a psychopath kind of is understandable considering what I went through. The molestation was something I never said publicly ever until this point. It was a secret for a very long time. And I really felt if I cared enough about somebody that I would tell them about this. I felt it was a disservice to him not to explain that, because one of my greatest fears was that I would do something very trauma-related because of that experience, and I didn't want him to think it was his fault. And I also didn't want to look like an idiot because I did something based on my trauma response. So for example, I mentioned it in Come Find Me, but essentially I didn't want him hugging me or something like that, and I freak out, like push back or get really stiff or something like that, and he thinks that he's gross or something and that I don't want him at all, when that's not the case. It's one of those things where you want it so badly that you fuck it up. That's pretty much what I feared would happen. So I thought if I explained one of my deepest, darkest secrets, and I just threw it out there, that he would understand why I would do certain things. I felt it made more sense to explain it, especially since it's such a big part of the way I am. And even though I can't 100% distinguish how I would be without that experience, but it happened. There's really nothing I can do about it now. It just happened. But it affected so much. Like, my self-esteem was crushed. I didn't have self-esteem, like, at all. I was so guilt-ridden. Guilt was the worst way to get at me. It was the easiest way, because I would eat at myself after a while, and it was just really, really tough. So most of the way I am, at least at that time, I believe was attributed to the molestation and how I reacted to it. Now, that was the first phase, so that was a really long-winded version of it, but essentially, in short, it was me trying to be brave, telling someone how I felt and explaining the way I was to him and why I was so shy of him, and why I didn't interact with him the way I wanted to. I wanted to make it clear that I did want him, I just didn't know how to say it to his face. So I was kind of hoping if I threw "come find me" out there, all of a sudden he literally would come find me, not in a creepy "I'm gonna kill you" kind of way, but in a cute, romanticized knight on a white horse kind of way. But after that phase, it's funny because when you're writing, it really is a process. Not only is it mentally like, oh, it's so rough, but it's one of those things where it's just, for me, like, it's always been hard to write, but it's necessary. Like, I have to. For my mental health, I have to write. It's weird. That's just how my subconscious speaks. That's how I kind of tell myself what's going on. How I make things more clear to myself is by writing it out. How I get a lot of emotions that are stuck and I don't know what to do with them. And that's how a lot of it comes out, is through my writing. So as I was writing, things change whether you want them to or not, and they can change drastically. So throughout this whole process, things have morphed quite a bit. So it was just me being a little romantic, me wanting a dude to understand the way I was and just kind of just say my story and explain what was going on. And then we go into phase 2, where the second purpose was for me to blame people for what happened. So it's one of those things where you're so guilty and you blame yourself that after you kind of realize it's not my fault, you point the finger at everybody. It's not okay, but it happened. I feel like it's almost like a natural phase to getting better, is kind of doing the pointing the finger thing. It's not okay, but I think it is understandable to some degree. So it turned into a very bitter blame game. That was the second purpose. In this purpose, I was blaming 3 particular people, one at a time. So it kind of went from one, and then it morphed into the other, and then it morphed into the other, until we went to the third purpose. So within the second bitter blame game, the first person I was blaming was my mother. Now, I know now that it wasn't fair to blame her, but you hear these stories where these mothers just kind of know instinctively what's going on with their babies. They just know. They wake up in the middle of the night and they're like, there's something wrong with my infant. They instantly go there and the kid's like choking on something, you know what I mean? They have these crazy connections to their baby. If you think they're holding them for so long, like that baby was a part of you for so long, that it's almost like, how can you not? You know what I mean? I'm sure there are people who don't. You hear stories about that too, but for the most part, I feel like you kind of almost can't help that bond. Like, if you're not fighting the bond, you can't help it. It's gonna happen. So it blew my mind that my mom had no idea this was happening. I remember talking to her. I didn't really fully, like, we don't do this, right? I didn't fully tell her that I was blaming her, because that probably would hurt a lot and I'd probably get mean about it, so I don't do it. But we kind of danced around it, and she was saying, Cassandra, you were so shy all the time. You always played by yourself. So I didn't think there was anything wrong. She didn't think there was anything wrong because she thought my personality was a shy child that just was a loner. And for the most part, I still kind of am that way. I'm very much shy. I'm very much loner. But I thought there were so many red flags that she missed. So I blamed her very much for it, because I was just like, how'd you not feel there was something wrong with me? How'd you not know there was something wrong? Some of my writing being so dark, like, none of that clicked in your head that there's something wrong with your baby. That blew my mind. But at the same time, if you've heard some of my other videos, I have a lot of siblings. So my parents are tired. My mom was a housewife for a long time. She works now outside the home, but she was a housewife for all of my childhood, for the most part, and she had a lot of kids to deal with all at once. And then my dad would come home, and I'm very similar to him in a lot of ways, so he's very, like, fiery, and he gets angry very easily, and just complaining all the time, you know what I mean? Like, I love my dad, I do. I love them both, but that's reality. He was like that, especially when all the financial burdens were on his back, because he was working, making the money, and she was home taking care of the army of us that were home. So it's a lot. I get that now as an adult, but at the time I didn't see it that way. I saw it as, you're my mom, you should have some type of bond with me, you should have some type of feeling, and you should be able to know she's acting weird. There's something off about her. Maybe I should keep an eye on her and make sure she's okay. I don't know. I very much blamed her for what happened. After blaming myself, I blamed her. I was told by someone who's not always reliable, but it might be true, that usually people who get molested or have something traumatic happen to them, especially in childhood, will blame a caregiver for not helping them, not protecting them, which sounds logical to me, so I think that's true. But keep in mind, I can only speak for myself, so I may say you or other people or whatever, but I'm going through my lens, my experiences, so please bear that in mind, that I'm not necessarily right, and this is just my perspective now, or what my perspective was then. It doesn't necessarily mean everyone who gets molested acts like the way I did. They definitely don't. I'm me and I act the way I do. So after blaming my mother, the bitter blame game turned to the best friend who heard scream number one. That was the young girl who I told after school. I told her while we were climbing up that annoying hill. But yeah, we were going up it and I told her what happened. And I did blame her for a long time, which is sad because I hope she doesn't even see this. Mostly because I don't want her to blame herself, because I think she does already, to be honest, because I do still know her. I don't want her to blame herself for it because it really isn't her fault. But I did have a moment where I did blame her because I looked up to her. She was only 1.5 years older than me, so keep that in mind. And like I said, when I confessed to my parents, I was sometime 13 or younger. So I'm talking like pubescent child, still child. So she's still a child too. She was still a child at that time, and putting that burden on another child really wasn't fair of me to do. But I did do it. Because I figured, she's a little older, she would know what to do, or she'd help me, because I figured, that's what a best friend would do, you'd help, right? But looking back now, I see how unfair I was being, because how the hell would she be able to help me? What could she possibly do? Like, I get that now. What could she possibly have done? Really, she couldn't. And even in Come Find Me, I was still bitter with it. You can notice that in one of the lines that I mentioned, she didn't know what happened in the aftermath. But the thing is, she probably did. She probably was seeing me die inside, but she didn't know what to do. And it's not her fault. So if she does see this, I want her to know it's not her fault. It wasn't fair to blame her. Now, the third and final blame game came to the perpetrator himself, the one who actually did molest me. It seems weird, because even me thinking about it, like, logically, none of this makes sense. Even me looking at it now, I'm just like, none of this makes sense, but it happens that way, or it did happen that way for me in particular. So it's weird how, like, you don't blame, like I said to you, sorry, whatever. You don't blame the perp right away. It's such a sick thing. It must be like the Stockholm Syndrome thing. I found myself protecting him most of my life, as sick as that is. Like, the person who broke you freaking down, you're protecting them. It's sick. It doesn't make any sense. Logically, it doesn't make sense, but I did do it. I don't think I really put too much emphasis on blaming him and Come Find Me. Maybe I did. I don't know. It depends on your perspective. But I don't know. I had a weird bond with him. It really did happen, like, where you get this weird bond where you just, like, want to protect the asshole who fucked you up. I don't know why. It's not like I was afraid of him, as weird as that is. I wasn't like, oh, if I said something, he's gonna kick my ass. I didn't really think of that. It was a weird bond. It's kind of like in Harry Potter, if you've ever read the Harry Potter books, the movies, both, whatever it is. The evil guy, Voldemort, goes after Harry, tries to kill him, and then that piece of Voldemort is in Harry. So Harry has some of his powers. They have a bond, like a mental bond and things, an emotional bond. They can feel things for each other. It's strange. They have a connection. That's pretty much what happened. And for Harry Potter, it shows at the end that part that was connecting them had to die for them to be separate beings. That's kind of what had to happen with me. I did not kill this man. He's still alive. At the time of this filming, he's still alive. I feel like even if you're the perpetrator, some type of empathy should be there for you to some degree. I know there's some really extreme situations, like someone kills somebody else or something and you're just like, fuck them. But everyone has a story and you don't always know what it is and you don't always know how it feels. We're human beings. I do believe we all have the capacity to empathize even if we don't go through it in particular. So even if someone hopefully was a molester or something, they could kind of see where I'm coming from, maybe. So I do believe people do understand to some degree how I felt and why things happened the way they did. But at the same time, I kind of think of that with the perpetrators too. So yes, I believe the blame should be placed where it belongs. It's your fault. It is. But at the same time, there's always another fault. It's almost like all our fault, as weird as it is. You know, you're having a good day, whatever. Somebody is yelling at you and you're like, what the frick, what did I do? You know what I mean? Like, you don't even do anything. They're just mad and they take it out on you, and now all of a sudden you're mad and you take it out on somebody else. You know what I mean? You don't always see the cause and effect of it all. You don't always see the cause. Usually you just see the effect. So it's hard to know where it stems from. I don't think it's right to ever touch children or touch anyone who doesn't want to be touched. That's horrible. I get that. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not giving consent that this is okay, because it's freaking not. I'm just saying, to some degree, I understand why you would be so embittered that you would do something terrible like that. Maybe to feel or whatever it is you're trying to achieve. Him still, but at the same time, I feel more lenient towards him. Not necessarily, again, I'm off the hook. It's just, I understand that there are causes and effects, and causes especially that I don't see all the time. You know what I mean? And then I don't always know about. So, who knows? Maybe he got touched too. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It's not okay. It's a cycle that does need to end. I have never done anything, nor do I plan on doing anything to anybody, but I do get where you get to a point where you just don't give a shit. Because for me, I was so guilty. I felt so guilty. I felt so bad about everything, and I hated everybody, and I saw everyone and I was like, you're all idiots. I freaking can't stand you. Like, get away from me. But at the same time, I wanted affection. I would push people away, but I want to be hugged. I want affection, genuine affection, not like you're taking advantage of me kind of thing. But I didn't know how to say that. I didn't know how to express it, and my natural reaction was to protect myself. I've been hurt very hard in the past, so I try to protect myself by putting on a shell, and I'm just like, no, get away from me. You know what I mean? So I always pushed people away. Part of the shyness was pushing people away. I was in such a bad place myself that I felt so shit, and you just hate people because you're like, no one understands me, no one gets me, no one gives a fuck about me. If I die today, no one would freaking care. You know what I mean? Like, you get to that point where you're just like, fuck them. You know what I mean? And you feel like you would do something, or you're capable of doing something horrendous because you felt that way. You kind of kill your feelings. Like, I even found I could kill my own feelings. I was to that point where you want to do something bad when you're feeling that shit. But like I was saying, finally getting to my point, I kind of get the perpetrator's point too. I was at that point where I felt I could definitely do it, and I definitely understood why people did bad things. Like, really bad things. So essentially, the first purpose was for me to express my feelings for someone and to explain a little bit about my past. The second reason was the bitter blame game, pointing the finger at everybody. The third and final purpose of Come Find Me, the purpose for it now, is I hope it helps someone. Now, I know that sounds very posh, I guess, or philanthropic or something like that. Philanthropic, however you say that. Philanthropic, I don't know how to say it, whatever it is, you know what I mean? It sounds like charity case kind of shit, but it's not. That's not the way I take it. I see it more as kind of validation for someone who goes through something, or has gone through, or is going through something similar, or who has these feelings too, regardless of the situation that they're going through or went through. I kind of wanted to validate that your feelings are valid, and it's normal to be psycho. Like, as weird as that is, I'm not saying to do psychotic things and that's okay. I'm not condoning any of that. It's more, you have a right to feel it, especially when something drastic like this happens. How can you not feel it? You don't know what's going on. You're in turmoil so much that you have no idea what the frick is going on, and it's frustrating. to not know what the frick's going on. I hope it will help somebody. And I even told myself, I was like, even if no one out there is helped, as sad as that freaking is, if no one is helped out there, at the very least, I hope I help myself. That sounds selfish, but it's not. I've suffered enough. I'm sorry. I deserve to get help too, okay? And I found just writing about it helped, because there was so much I didn't know about myself until I started writing Come Find Me. So, for example, I didn't realize how bitter I was, who I was blaming. I didn't know how mad I was, like at my mom, for instance, until I started writing it. And I was like, oh my god, what the fuck? She didn't notice? Like, I didn't know these things were happening. I feel like I did, but they were buried so deep that my writing pulled it out. So if writing helps me pull things out, so it's not a clean and pleasant process. Like, some people are like, I love writing because I feel so good and blah blah blah, and I'm like, that's good for you, but writing hurts for me a lot. It does. It's necessary. It's one of those things where if I don't write for a while, I get mean. I have to literally write it out. It's ridiculous. My emotions are so linked to my writing, it's unreal. So writing has to be cathartic for me. It's a painful purging process, but it has to happen. It's just one of those things. It's just me. I have to do it. But I remember there was one particular day, I don't know what happened that day, but there was one particular day I was like, someone's gonna benefit from this. It just clicked. I was like, someone's gonna benefit from this, so I'm doing it. Even if it's just one freaking person, even if it's not even just me, maybe someone else out there, that one person deserves to feel okay. So guess what? This is for that person. And I hope it helps in some way. I also wanted to point out that very often, and I'm guilty of this too, I'm pretty judgy generally, not gonna lie, but very often a lot of my judgments, like with anything, it reflects back at me, you know what I mean? I do a lot of these things too, so I'm not just saying it's like other people that are always doing this, it's me too. So for example, I noticed, at least in my society that I live in right now, that very often the victim is blamed for the sins of the perpetrator. So for example, say somebody wanted to go outside at night, right? So let's say it's a woman, because the woman's always the one that gets caught somehow. But men go through crap too, I'm not saying that. But generally people think a woman is a weaker one, you know what I mean? Not as physically able to fight. So let's go with that crap. So you have a woman, she goes outside by herself alone in the dark. She wants to view the stars. Innocent thing to do. Want to enjoy what nature has to offer. Goes outside, enjoys the stars, looking up at the sky by herself. Now, either she lives alone, or maybe her roommates are, or family or whatever, they're all sleeping, whatever it is, she felt compelled to go outside, look at the stars. And while she's doing it, all of a sudden someone whacks her from behind and takes her away, kidnaps her, and does whatever cruddy crap they want to do to her, right? But when someone hears stories like that, I hear this so often, this commentary of like, what is she, stupid? Why would you go outside in the dark by yourself? You're not paying attention to your surroundings and blah, blah, blah. And that's all you hear is like, oh, why did she go outside by herself? It's like, I'm sorry, she wanted to live her life and enjoy something, and it just happened to be at night. That's not her fault that she got kidnapped because she wanted to freaking look at the stars. You know what I mean? I understand to a certain degree. You have to be aware to some degree. Obviously, we hear so many horror stories, and unfortunately, some people live, obviously, these horror stories too. So they do happen. I'm not saying you shouldn't learn from other people's experiences and things like that. It's more, I feel generally as a society, it's not right to blame someone who just wants to live their life. Think about it. You can't do something because, oh, you might get hurt. You might get hurt. Obviously, you probably regret it when you do get hurt, but there's nothing inherently wrong with going outside in the dark. It's just that you have a lot of assholes who take advantage of that. You know what I mean? That take advantage of the dark and the fact that there's less people out there, and it's more likely to get away with things. You can hide your face, so you feel confident that you're an asshole. You know what I mean? I kind of get both ends, but at the same time, it's really not the victim's fault. If you're just innocently living your life, and it's shitty to kind of put a hold on your life because there are bad people out there. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you can't live your life because bad people exist and they could hurt you. What the fuck is that? I'm gonna live my life the way I want to. But it's hard to, because then you kind of think like, well, what if that does happen to me? That kind of thing. So it kind of puts a halt on your own living fully, because you're always like, well, what if I get hurt or something? You know what I mean? I don't like the victim blaming thing. And there are certain situations, okay, where there are multiple people at blame, even the person who gets hurt, who's mostly the victim, you know what I mean? There's so many different situations in the world, obviously. There's so much black and white and gray and mixed colors, and there's so much crap going on. But sometimes it really is black and white like that, where she just wanted to enjoy her time, and then somebody tried to snuff out her enjoyment. It's not her fault somebody did that. So I just kind of hope if somebody is a victim of something, that they know, you know, just you trying to live your life and someone trying to snuff out the good in you, that's not your fault. The perpetrator should be blamed more than the victim, although, like I said, it is a wishy-washy situation where there's cause and effects, and you can't always see the cause that caused the effect. So you don't always know the links. So life is rough with certain things, but the perpetrator-victim thing is not super black and white, but at the same time, sometimes you really are a victim. Sometimes the victim's not always easy to pick out, or who the perpetrator is easy to pick out, because we always kind of want to blame somebody. It's human nature to want to blame someone. You want to point at someone and say, you're the only reason this happened. But there's so many little bits and pieces, moving parts, that play into every situation. But I feel like, especially for a molestation thing, especially when you're a child, it's not your fault. I don't even care if you were like a floozy kid, you know. I'm sure there's some of those too. Most of the time when you're a kid, you don't know what the frick is going on. You're just there. You know what I mean? You're like, I live. Hi, how you doing? You have no idea what's happening. You don't fully get it yet. You know what I mean? And like, even adults don't fully get it. I don't freaking know what's going on. Do you? It's hard to know. All right. I also wanted to say, it's kind of unrelated, but we're bouncing everywhere. It's okay. Part of what I thought would help someone, anybody, is the cringy parts now. And there are a lot of cringy parts in Come Find Me. A lot of things that are cringy, very disturbing, way too much info, did not need to know that. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. But I wanted it to be that intimate, and I wanted it to be that honest. I wanted it to be honest. And there are certain parts where even the way I word it, I was like, oh, why did I word it that way? But I did. And I was just like, you know what? I did that at like 3 a.m. So I'm just going to leave it like that, because I'm not doing that again. But a lot of those parts too, I wanted my younger self to speak, because my younger self had been silent for far too freaking long. And I was just like, you know what? You're going to talk. You're going to say whatever the frick you want to say, and you're going to say it the way you want to say it. I did filter. Obviously, this happened over years, so I did edit and things like that. So I chopped some things out, worded it a little differently. But for the most part, I tried to keep it as authentically young me as possible. I'm not old by any means, but you know what I mean? Younger me. I also noticed that I forgot a lot of things, because when I would have that big stretch of like, oh, it's terrible, and I left it alone, and then I would go back to the writing of it, I would see like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. There are parts that I completely forgot even happened. My memory is Swiss cheese. I forgot certain things, and I was like, good job, young me, for putting that in there, because that's important. So I tried to honor what I did before. So I try not to chop too much, because I wanted my younger self remembers what happened. So I wanted my younger self to put it in there, and then I would just fluff it up if I needed to, or something like that, or put it in different places or wherever it needed to go to try to organize it a little bit better, because we know I'm all over the place. That's mainly what my now self's job was to do, is more organizing it, not necessarily hushing my younger self. I wanted my younger self to speak, and I was glad that even the things I forgot, they're in there. Come Find Me is mainly my memory at different stages. My memory is iffy because I forgot what the name of it is. I mentioned this in Come Find Me too, where you forget what happened to you because it was so traumatic, your brain couldn't handle it, couldn't process it, so you're just like, nope, we're putting that in a drawer, you're not seeing that again, you know what I mean? At least not right now. So it gets stored away, and you don't remember fully, you remember bits and pieces. I remember just enough to know what happened, but I don't remember everything at all. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I kind of want to remember, just to get rid of it almost. Purge the demon of memory, as I mentioned in the book too. But I don't know really how to do that. I can't just not know. You know what I mean? I have to know something, at least. I need to know something to be okay. But my mind is so smart, because it left me the pieces that showed me this happened over a period of time, that this wasn't just one isolated incident. Even if it was, that's horrific anyway. But this happened a lot. So me remembering that it was routine, the feeling and everything that was routine showed how often this was happening to me. So my brain gave me enough to fill in the blanks, essentially. I definitely see it as my mind trying to protect itself, because it knows, like, I've been through a lot, and it's just like, you know what, girl, you're not gonna remember that. That's too much. But I'm older now, and I'm kind of like, oh, I think I can handle it a little bit more. Maybe. In honor of the purpose, number 3, right, of trying to help someone. I know I explained a lot of heavy things in Come Find Me anyway, but we're going to go through some more. Now, the reason for that is I kind of wanted to go through some things a little bit more detail and or add some things that weren't mentioned or weren't really touched on too much in Come Find Me, mostly because Come Find Me is I'm talking to this young man, telling him how I feel and explaining what happened. But at the same time, there's nothing like me just telling you, you know what I mean? Like talking to you and just saying it. So I hope I can kind of clarify some things, and maybe anyone who feels these things and or will feel these things or had feel these things, they can kind of, you know, get that validation that you're not the only one. For sure. We're never the only one, are we? But it does feel like that. It can feel like that very much, that you're alone. But I do want to stress that some of these things are my personality, some of them are because of the molestation, but like I said, it's hard to separate 100% what's what, because it happened when I was so young. First things first, one of probably the biggest things you'll hear, honestly, even with anyone who has been a rape or molestation victim, is guilt and shame that you feel. For me, I always thought God was picking on me. I thought it was this little bitch and he was just gonna do whatever he wanted, and that was that. And he didn't really like me, and I was just like his whipping boy, you know what I mean? He just wanted to make me feel really shit about myself, and I really believed I was getting picked on pretty hard by the universe, divine, God, whatever you want to call him. But for me, guilt has always been a thing that's tricky. It's always been something I feel very strongly. I may feel guilty about things that aren't my fault at all, but I just feel it. I feel responsible somehow. I feel responsibility, like the weight of the world, and I don't know why. I just do. But one of the things is, like, I have trouble with anger. Anger is one of the feelings that are the biggest struggles for me. Anger. Like, anxiety is big, but anger takes the cake. Anger is bad. It's so hard. It's so freaking hard to deal with. But anytime I felt guilty or felt a lot of shame, it fueled my anger, so it made it worse. And especially if I really truly believe this is my fault, I'm gonna take it out on somebody else. Especially then, it really did happen that way a lot, unfortunately. A lot of people were the victim of my wrath, essentially. It was one of those things where I felt so helpless. It's like somebody just pins you down and you can't get the frick up because they're like 200 pounds heavier than you know what I mean? You can't get them frick off you. Like, it feels like that, and there's like nothing you can do about it. They can get all close up to you. You can't stop it. That's the worst feeling in the world, is that you can't stop it. You can't control it. You can't do anything about it. You can't save yourself. You're screwed. It is so frustrating. It's not even funny. And feeling like you like don't have a choice, that there's nothing you can do, like literally nothing you can do. And some people try to say that as like a nice thing, like there's nothing you can do, so why feel guilty about it, because it's not your fault. Yes, but at the same time, I can't save myself. Like, I can't get out of this. It's annoying. It drives me crazy. It really does. It feels like other people have to choose for you because you're not strong enough to choose for yourself. You can't handle it. You obviously can't even save yourself from the situation, so how can you save yourself from anything, you know? I literally felt like a beaten dog. You don't know why you're constantly being buffeted with such terrible things and experiences and feelings, and you don't understand. That's one of the frustrating things too, is you don't get it. It's part of why me, but not really. At the same time, I took it more as like, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong to deserve it? That's how I thought of it as. Like, why are you hurting me? What did I do to deserve to get hurt? Another thing is, with guilt too, I hated responsibility with stuff, which is funny because I'm a very responsible person, but I get bitter about being responsible. It's annoying. I'm very push and pull. I'm very extreme. So not everything I feel makes sense to me. But I kind of wanted other people to do things because I figured they knew more, or they were smarter than me, or better than me, or they could do it better. Or like, I just screw everything up, so you do it, you know what I mean? But it's so weird. I'm a woman of so many contradictions. It's like unreal. I'm sure most people are, if not everybody, but I'm saying it, so. Another thing that was bad, but that happens, is I get proud of my vices. Now, I'm a very proud person generally, but I was proud of how bad I was sometimes, like how bad I would feel. Most of the time, like I said, it was in my head. I didn't do much. Mostly I would just yell at people or whatever privately, because I wouldn't do it out in public because I want public to think I'm great. You know what I mean? But I tell my siblings or something like that, I'll just like blow up. But for the most part, I was pretty quiet and just suffering by myself. But it's almost like you're proud of being bad. You know what I mean? Like, you're the badass. Like, it's stupid and it's foolish and it's childish, but it happened. I would get proud of my vices. Another thing I would do, like I said, I'm contradiction. So I have like big head, small head. I'm constantly push and pull. It's unfreaking real. It feels like I just can't get a break sometimes. It's just so all over the place. But one of the things I would do too is I would feel very small. I would self-depreciate. So I feared both, and still now too, I fear success and I fear failure equally. That's where the self-sabotage really comes in, because I'm afraid to fail. So like I work so freaking hard, I burn myself out. And you hope working hard will get you somewhere good, but it doesn't always. Sometimes you just work yourself to death. So it's tough. I want to not fail, so I work really, really hard to succeed. And then when I see success, I'm like, hell no. I don't want to feel that pressure, that responsibility of success and staying up there, because you know if you're up there, guess what? There's highs and lows in life. You're going to go down too. You don't know. That not knowing drives me crazy. But I would do this thing where, because I was a victim, I always felt like a victim. So I felt helpless, right? I didn't feel like I could save myself. So that's part of the reason why I held on to that young man too, is because I thought, no, I was very romantic minded, and I still am to some degree. I feel like I'm a little more grounded now than I was then, thankfully. But I thought the guy would come in and save you. You're a damsel in distress. Where's the knight? Where is he coming? You know what I mean? It's kind of like in Shrek or something. Fiona's waiting and she's like, this is not how it's supposed to go. Like, that's pretty much what I was thinking. I was just kind of like, well, I'm going to wait. I'm going to see if he shows up. I'm going to see if he helps me. And when he didn't, I was like, fuck me. I got to do it myself. So, yeah, I had to do it myself. What never helped was I never felt like I fit in anywhere or that anyone understood me. So I felt like I was so turbulent inside. And then I see these people, the extroverts, you know, just blossoming with people. And when I'm around people, I feel so crap. And not everybody, but that's one of the hardest parts. I felt so alone. So alone. I still do to a certain degree, but thankfully I did find some people that mesh with me somewhat, and I feel like ASMR helps tremendously with that, which we'll get to hopefully somewhere in my rambles eventually. So naturally, like I was mentioning, I'm very push and pull, so I had a lot of mood swings, and mainly I would hold in my emotions so much. I would just hold on to them, and I'd be like, oh, I'm fine, it's all good, and then all of a sudden they explode. They come out, and they come out in the worst way. Reputation kind of played a part, but it was also just how my family is. We don't really, a lot of us do that. We suppress it, and then it blows up. And it may not blow up on the right people, and it may not be fair, but it does happen that way. So that happened a lot too, a lot of explosions. And I'm not always direct with it either, so sometimes I'm more like passive aggressive, you know what I mean? Like that annoying person that's passive aggressive. That's me. So you may get little snubs and snarkiness coming at you, and it's annoying because you like want to bitch me out because I'm being annoying, but at the same time I'm not like direct enough. So it's one of those weird situations. I deal with passive aggressive people too, so I get it back. Don't worry about it. Also, another thing is I'm also a very anxious person. I still am. I was then, still am now. It would come out physically too, but usually the physical things were more internal, so it'd be like heart palpitations and difficulty breathing and things like that, you know, having panic attacks. But I usually kept it to myself, so I would suppress it. So I'm like having trouble breathing, but I'm like holding it in because I'm in public and I don't want anyone to know. Like, it's so sad looking back at my poor little self struggling. My obsessive compulsiveness that happened, I think those compulsions were meant to keep me stable and somewhat in control. So I felt if I did something a certain way, it would cause a certain reaction to happen. And because of that, I felt a little bit more in control than if I was doing nothing at all. You know what I mean? I was so inactive in my life. I played such a small part in my own life that I felt if I did something and I felt like it was helping, it's better than nothing. Another thing, partly because of the reputation thing, I would try to keep myself under control. So I parent myself. And I did that as a child too. So if I would see myself being crazy and stuff, I'd be like, what are you doing? I would get mad at myself, and it makes it worse. Those emotions just make it worse. But I would still do it. I'd be like, no, you're doing this. Like, oh, you're tired? Too bad. Study. You're not done. You know what I mean? Like, I would parent myself like strictly. Very strict. I am very strict. But it's funny because I have a wild streak to me. It's there. I can feel it in there. I just wanted to be wild. I wanted to do something stupid. I wanted to do something crazy, something like a kid would do. You know what I mean? And I always told myself no. I was like, no, you have to be the responsible one. You have to do what you need to do. You need to do your work. It's almost like a prison sentence. I felt like I was in prison. I had to bide my time until I could be free. And then once I was free, I was like, what do I do now? You know what I mean? It literally was like that. I also had something, I don't know if I mentioned it, but Boy Scout honor. I always felt, I call it Boy Scout honor. It's like, Boy Scout honor. The reason I call it that is I always felt like I had a moral compass, a moral code that said, do this, this, and this. Don't do this, this, and this. Or like there's a timeline to do certain things, or whatever it is. I always wanted to do the honorable thing, the right thing. I always wanted to do the right thing, even if I didn't always do the right thing. I wanted to strive to do the right thing, which is better than nothing, I think. Also, as I hope I emphasized in Come Find Me, I very much lived in my head, not my body. That's why the beginnings of the chapters usually had the girl who was in the ocean, the ugly girl in the ocean. Kind of wanted it to almost have a fairy tale feel to it, but like like the real fairy tales where they're sick. You know what I mean? Like when the ugly stepsister's foot gets cut off. You know what I mean? Like the real fairy tale, that kind of stuff. It was more the dark end, but I wanted it to have that kind of fairy tale feel because I want to show how in my head I really was. I still get like that, but I try to be in my body because I know how detrimental being in your head can be. And I'm not promoting stupidity. There's nothing wrong with being smart. Being smart is definitely hard. It's a weighty thing. Knowledge is definitely weighty. But I think it's better than being stupid, in my opinion. Define stupid however you wish. But there's nothing wrong with being smart. It's just being stuck in your head to the point where you don't want to live in your own life is the issue, which is what I did. So I daydreamed to the extreme. I did it to escape. I wanted to not be here. I was too afraid to actually get myself out of life, but I wanted to not handle what my body was going through. So I feel like it's called dissociative disorder and disassociating, where my body was getting wrecked. So my mind was just like, hey, I'm out. You know what I mean? You didn't want to feel it. Who wants to feel that? So it's understandable why I did it. But at the same time, it became such a routine and such a thing that I automatically went to. That was the immediate response. Something's scary, something's bad, boom, in my head. So my body will just be sitting there. I just zone out. You just see me like, hello. And I'm in my head, living it up. It was a lot. So it caused a lot of action versus inaction imbalances. So I would stay in my head, and then it wouldn't translate from like, oh, idea to action, and now it's in the physical world. It would stay in my head and stay in my head and stay in my head, and I would just think It can't happen. It can't happen. It can't happen in real life. Or be so afraid to do it in real life that I never tried. So it was so imbalanced. I was always that type of person that wanted the end result. I want the reward. I don't want the journey. I was so goal-oriented. I still am. I struggle with this a bit still. But I had a lot of trouble, especially then, dealing with that journey and going through it. Going through things. I always wanted to go around it. I was like, screw you. You know, I always think of Finding Nemo. If you've seen that movie, it's cute. There's a part that's so wise. You have the smart fish, and then you have the forgetful fish, the more stupid fish, right? There's this crazy, scary-looking trench, this cavern, where there's dead fish bones and things in it, so it looks scary as crap. They were advised not to go over it, to go through it. And the smart fish is like, no, let's go over it. Why would we go through it? And then, you know, the stupid fish is like, but we should go through it. We were told to go through it. There's a reason. Just go through it. She had the faith, you know, to go through it. And then go up and they get attacked by jellyfish. It is true. Through, not over. And I understand that intellectually now, but it is a difficult thing to go through and not over it. Because you definitely want to, like, skirt around it. It's coming at you. You're like, hell no. You just veer. And you're like, no. Not today. Thank you. It's kind of sad that the journey's so hard to go through. Since kindergarten, I was like, you're going to college. That's what I want. You're going to college. You're just going to suffer until you get there. Like, that's pretty much what I told myself. I was like, you're going to find a way. I can't tell you how many hours I devoted to school and how long everything took me and how stupid I felt and how awful it was. People used to think I was so smart. I don't think I'm a stupid person, but at the same time, the way I was doing it wasn't healthy. That's for sure. I was exhausted. By the time I did get to college and I graduated, that final year of college, I thought I was dying. I was in so much pain. I was so tired. I was driving to school on the highway and I almost hit the guardrail. I was so tired. I almost fell asleep at the wheel. I was so tired. I would stay up for a ridiculous amount of time. I would study over and over and over again, the same crap over and over and over again until I wanted to jump off a bridge. I kept doing it and I was like, no, you're gonna learn this. I don't care. I had so much trouble with my memory. I was just like, no, you're gonna learn this. Too bad. So I was like the worst parent in the world to myself, telling myself, you're gonna do it or you're gonna die trying. Now, this is a weird, okay, we know I'm weird anyway, but this is a really weird thing that I don't know if other people feel this way, so I'm gonna throw it out there. If somebody feels this way, feel free to share if you feel comfortable. For a long time, I didn't recognize my own face. Now, that probably sounds psychotic and weird and like, why? Like, do you not have mirrors? And like, yeah, I do. But I wouldn't look at myself very often. I was so ashamed. I have this thing where, like, if I'm guilty or I know I was like a bitch that day, I have trouble looking myself in the eye. It's so weird. I am my own parent. Like, I can't even look myself in the eye because I know I did something wrong. It's so ridiculous, but it's true. That's what I do. And for the longest time, I would look at myself sometimes and I would just be like, you don't look like that. I would literally say that. And it's not like I'm ugly or anything. It's just, I would look at my face and I'd be like, I don't feel like you. So you're not me. If that makes any sense. I literally didn't recognize myself. I didn't feel like this body matched my soul, if that makes sense. Like, the way I am is not what I look like at all. It's very weird, but that was a long time I felt that. Very long time. I recognize myself now. YouTube helps a lot with that. When you're editing yourself for hours, you start to recognize your own face. A little too much. But that's actually one of the reasons why in the book, the ugly girl from the sea looks at herself and she doesn't recognize the woman she's looking at. That's why I didn't recognize myself at all. And I didn't accept this is what I look like on the outside because it didn't feel like it matched what was inside me. Also, like I mentioned before, and I'm probably just going to repeat myself a lot because I do that a lot, I'm sorry. But especially then, I still do this, unfortunately now. It's still a thing. But it was very prominent then. I was very bitter and I'm very judgmental towards myself and everyone else. So it's one of those things where I held such high expectations for me that I assumed other people should also be lofty sighted, you know, and try to aim higher too. So when I saw people doing like the bare minimum, like, what are you doing, lazy? Get to work. What are you doing? You're definitely not parenting yourself in the same style I'm parenting me. It's interesting though, because I'm such a perfectionist. So one of the worst things to tell me, especially when I was a kid, is that thing where do your best. When people say do your best, you do not say that to a perfectionist, because you know what? A perfectionist doesn't know what their best is, because what they want to be their best is not what their best is, realistically. So when people told me do your best, I remember thinking, what the fuck is my best? Well, I didn't say it that, I didn't say fuck, but it was something like that, where I was like, well, what is my best? I don't know what it is. So how do I know when to stop? I didn't know when to stop. That's one of the things why I'm a perfectionist. I didn't know how to stop. I thought I could always do better. So why would I stop? And I would just keep pushing and pushing and pushing until I almost hit a guardrail. When I was so bitter towards myself too, I wanted to kill any good in myself, because if I knew if I killed the good in myself, I could kill myself. But at the same time, I wanted redemption. I wanted to be a better person, but I didn't know how. And I didn't believe it was possible to be better. I literally looked at myself and I was like, every time I tried, I felt like I got slapped down, and every little failure, I cringed and I ran backwards, because I was like, fuck this. I don't want to know how bad it can get. So I would just run, because I was so fearful all the time, so fearful of everything. And I thought I was so far gone, there was no hope for me at all. Now, this is definitely me naturally. I'm very serious, quiet, and shy, normally. I know I'm talking a hell of a lot, so you're like, you're sure? You're quiet? Yes, sometimes I am. But yeah, it's mostly in public. I feel a lot of stuff. People can say it's empaths. I almost don't like calling myself an empath, because like I technically am by definition, but it sounds too nice, like I'm nice, and I'm not nice. So I'm not necessarily an empath. I feel stuff. I definitely feel energies. I feel people's vibes. I can tell things other people don't see. That's part of the reason why I would judge people too, is because not everyone, it blows my mind even now that like some people can't tell. Like they look at someone who's smiling and they're like, they're so happy. And I'm like, they look like they're dying inside. Are you sure? They're happy. I'm like, are you sure? Or someone will seem like they're super nice and I'm like, they're bitches, dude. They're gonna stab you in the back the second you turn around. Do you not know that? Like, you can't feel it. You can't tell by their face. Like, it blows my mind. It's not like I know everything either. It's not like I can judge everybody. Some people are hard to read. But some people are friggin' easy to read too, and I'm just looking at these other people, I'm like, you're so happy, you little optimist, but you're wrong. No, that person's not like that, and you're gonna find out the hard way, you poor thing. That was part of the judgy thing, but the being very serious, because I was my own little parent, the seriousness was definitely a thing. I had trouble with fun in general, letting myself have fun. Like, even when I was laughing and stuff, I would hold it back, so I was like, why are you laughing? There's no time to laugh. It was ridiculous. I was so sad. It was such a sad thing that I didn't want myself to smile. Like, in school, I think my teachers would breathe a sigh of relief when I smiled. They'd see the little curls, and they're like, oh my god, the kid's normal. The kid's okay. She can hear. She's listening. She's not deaf. That's good. I can't imagine what they were thinking. Some of them were so nice to me though, like when I got my hugs from the teachers after school, because they're like, you're so good, but then it like reinforces I gotta be good so I can get a hug, you know what I mean? So it's kind of sick in some way, but it's also nice. I love the hugs. I did like the hugs. The issue with being very serious, quiet, and shy, apart from some other things, but generally speaking, one of the worst parts, especially about being shy, is you tend to get misunderstood, or at least it feels like you're misunderstood. People don't really tend to see the beauty behind you. They either kind of look at you as you think you're better than them kind of thing, or they see you as, oh, so cute, oh, what a nice little kid, whatever, you know. They see you as those extremes, but they don't really know your personality, because your personality is hard to show people. I always had trouble showing my personality to people. I even used to say when I was younger, no one even knows I have a personality. I don't even think they did, because they just see this lump of a person there, very quiet, very serious, barely smiled, barely laughed, didn't really do anything, worked really, really hard. So you see a hard worker, but I'm like a drone. I just work hard and that's it. All the breakdowns you don't see. You know what I mean? They're in the background when I go home, when I'm by myself and crying to myself. You don't usually see that in public, or at least I try to hide it in public. There are certain memories where it peaked out. But for the most part, I kept, especially when I was younger, when I was really young, like elementary school, I would keep it to myself. So it was kind of sad because people didn't know you had a personality, and they didn't see that you were wearing armor to protect yourself. So it's like they didn't look through the armor to see the terrified human being desperately trying to protect herself within the armor. It's so beautiful when someone actually does see it, because it is hard to see. I do recognize that, like, as a quiet person, shy person, it's hard to see the beauty there when you don't really know them. You know what I mean? Especially if you're the yappy one and you're just like friends with the quiet one and you just keep yapping at them and they're just like, okay. And they just let you yap because why not? It stops you from yapping, so whatever. And you get to hear like what the normal people think and all that. There's layers to those kind of dynamics. But it is hard to see that someone's wearing armor, but I was definitely wearing armor and lots of it. Another thing with me, I was never a people person. I'm still not a people person. But one of the reasons I am not a people person is because I do feel people's stuff too much, and I don't like it. It gets confusing because I'm like, is that yours or is that mine? I don't know. It gets too much for me, and sometimes it just feels weighty, and I have to be alone. I have to. It's like necessity. Must be alone. But another thing is, because I cared so much about my reputation then, I still care now. Like, I think we all care about our reputation to some degree. There's some people we respect so highly that we want them to think good things about us, you know what I mean? Or even, like, for some stupid reason, we even want the person we don't even like to like us. I don't know. We have a weird thing as people to do that, generally speaking. But for me, I would freeze around people. I still do. Freeze. I'm like a rabbit. Someone looks and I'm like, I don't exist. Look away. There's nothing to look at here. Goodbye. I have so much social anxiety. It's not even funny. It's never funny anyway, but it's a lot. So pushing through social things is tough. I think I read this or heard this somewhere. I never remember where it came from. I'm sorry. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Someone had mentioned in this society, like in American society, where we all go for like the boisterous people, the people who are very extroverted and very people and all that stuff, and all our jobs, everything is like set up for those people to succeed. But the people like me who don't like that stuff, you suffer because it's not your ideal way of doing things. And it doesn't have to be ideal, but it's not even like remotely respectful of the way you like to do things, the way you're comfortable working or interacting with people. So thank God for things like technology now, where you can email somebody, so I don't have to go up to your face. I can just email and like, oh, yeah, need this from you, thank you. You know what I mean? It helps people like me who just need that. I have trouble just dealing with people, especially face to face. I'm one of those people, if you talk to me and you want me to make a decision, I can't do it right away. I have to think about it. Like, I need to get away from you. I need to think about it maybe for like a couple days, couple hours, something. I need time. Something bad happened. I am not the person you want in an emergency because I can't help you. Like, I panic too much. I have to think about it. I have to mull it over. I have to make it make sense to me first, and then I can help you. But I can't help you before that. All right. Now, another thing you hear a lot with people who have been molested and or raped is they have a lot of trust issues. I feel like that's with any kind of trauma situation for the most part. The reaction is to not trust people. It's hard to trust when something terrible happened to you, especially from people who you trusted. Part of the trust thing is because I'm emotionally unavailable, because I have trouble expressing my emotions maturely and to people. Part of that was my upbringing. Like I mentioned, my family, we don't do that. We just don't. We don't say we love each other. We don't do any of that crap. We don't like nothing. Like, isn't it awful that I even called it crap? I'm sorry to those who do it. It's not crap. Sharing your emotions isn't crap. It's hard to do, but I'm so not used to it. I'm not used to it. So trying to do that, tell someone, hey, I like you. It sounds easy, but when you try to do it, you're like, I'm gonna walk away. Goodbye. Or I might freeze in front of you and it's just gonna get awkward. I don't know. That was part of it too. It's hard to trust people when you can't even tell them how you feel and you have trouble telling them how you feel. You know, you have trouble finding the words to explain perfectly what you feel. And sometimes it's hard. It's confusing. You don't even know what you feel. Like saying it is hard. You just feel it, and it's difficult to actually put it into words for others to understand you. At least for me, I find that hard. Another thing is because I had that armor on, right? I always felt I had to protect myself, so I always felt attacked all the time. Even when people weren't attacking me, like I felt attacked. So I would always be on the defensive, so I'm constantly uptight, just ready to smack you because I don't know what you're gonna do, and I don't trust that you have my best interests in mind. I just assume you're there for you, and you don't give a crap what happens to me, so I gotta protect myself. I kind of learned the hard way that no one can protect me but me, so I have to do it myself. So, and it's awful because I'm tired sometimes and I just don't feel strong enough to fight. But if I have to fight, and when I say fight, I don't necessarily mean physical fighting, but like emotionally fight away from your bad mood, from my mood, or whatever, like anything, just feeling like I'm getting attacked in some way, shape, or form. I don't know, I just learned from a very young age that I need to protect me, and I had trouble believing, and I still have trouble believing that anyone can protect me but me. And even if I don't do a good job, I trust myself to do it better than someone else. I'm also suspicious, especially when other people say nice things or do nice things. This is awful. I had talked to one of my siblings about this, and she mentioned it. She says, isn't it sad that she does this too, so this is like a family thing going on, but she's saying, isn't it sad that when someone does something nice, you're confused? And I'm like, yeah, it is sad. Especially strangers, you're like, what do you get out of it? I don't understand why you would. So it's not like I don't think being nice is a good thing. It is, but I have so much trouble knowing that it's a thing and that people would actually willingly do it. I'm always suspicious. I'm one of those people that I'm like, well, if you broke down on the side of the road, one, I don't know how to help you. I'm sorry. I could probably call someone for you, but at the same time, I'm also thinking, if you're a psycho and you're gonna push me in your car, so then when was this fake? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So I always have that defensive, you're gonna hurt me, so I'm gonna hurt you first, or I'm gonna just leave you alone. Mostly I leave you alone, so that you don't hurt me. It's really a sad thing. So even when people compliment me, they're like, oh, you look nice today. I'm like, get the fuck away from me. You're probably jealous, or you're just vindictive, or you just hate me. I don't know. I just get these things. Like, some people generally are, and there are people out there that do it, as sad as it is. But there are people who generally actually think you look nice, and it's kind of hard. I even have trouble saying it to other people because I see it through my lens. So I see it as like, I'd be suspicious if I was being nice to me. Like, if me being nice to someone else, it seems false even though it's true. One of the things I noticed, I've watched ASMR videos for many years now, and I've never ever commented ever on any videos from the people I watch, and I love them very much, but I don't say anything because I think about how silly it sounds. Like I said, it's hard for me to express emotions. Like, even writing, it helps, but it helps more if people know me, like in real life. You know what I mean? It's not just a stranger saying it. So I almost think of it from their perspective. I'm like, they're probably just like, oh yeah, somebody else saying, oh, good video. And they kind of like, how do I express how like grateful I am that you're cool like that and that you're sharing this with me? You know what I mean? Like, I have trouble doing that, so I just don't. So I may think a lot of positive things too. I'm not all negative Nelly, but I have trouble telling people that I think they're great because I would take it wrong if someone did that to me. You know what I mean? And some of you are probably like, hey, I said nice things. What the heck? Correct. But I try to see it the nice way. I try to see it as like, you're genuinely saying it to be kind. And some of them I do feel it. I really do feel the kindness. But it's just me. It's not your fault that I'm like that. I just do that. So please don't be offended. I just have trouble accepting kindness, especially from others. I have a lot of trouble with that. Also, like I was mentioning a little bit before, my memory, I believe my memory would have been better if that experience didn't happen. I believe trauma is thought to negatively affect memory, and I think, yes, it does. I think it does. I have trouble with my memory quite a bit. For the most part, like, I can remember things. It's not like I'm completely gone, but despite the memory issues and, like, my mind purposely forgetting things and stuff, which is fine, but I did have trouble retaining information, but it's also the way I process information anyway, because I mentioned I'm an HSP, a highly sensitive person, someone who mulls things over a lot, constantly. The wheels are constantly turning. So I just have a lot going on in there, you know what I mean? I'm sure everybody does to some degree. Just some people are better at filtering things out or, like, pinpointing on things. I'm not a pinpointer. I just keep going, and I mull it over, and it's always there, and then all of a sudden it'll come to the forefront. I'm like, yeah, I get it. But it takes time. And I was such a perfectionist, and I wanted to be such a good student that I would force myself to remember. So I literally would do it over and over again, and I'd, like, berate myself for not getting it right. And I'd be like, really? How many times you gotta read this before you figure it out? You know what I mean? Like, I'd be ridiculous with myself. But I was a phenomenal student. I always tried really, really hard, and I always got good grades all the time because I made sure. Parent me said, you're going to succeed in school, and this is how it's gonna look. So despite my memory issues, I pushed through it, and I did okay. School-wise, I did well. On paper, I did great. Mentally, not so much. Another thing, I feel behind in life where I'm not married, I don't have kids, I don't have a house. All the things I should have had by 28 years old, or way before 28 years old, I don't have. I don't. I'm a person that I've always kind of been behind in life. Everything everyone else knew or did, like the adult things, I didn't know. So for the longest time, even though I got molested, like I said in the book, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what was going on. Penis, vagina, like, I don't know. I don't fucking know. So I didn't know until I was quite a bit older. So, like, a lot of the other kids were already doing things at, like, 13. I'm like, ugh, no. It's not for me. I'm all set. They knew so much about certain things. Like, I may have known things academically, but they knew other things, and I didn't know for so long, and I kind of felt stupid because I was just like, everybody knows all these things, and I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm gonna shut up and pretend I know what's going on. That's one of the problems, though. I feel like a lot of people in my generation are like this. Honestly, this is probably a human thing in general, but I felt very rushed in life, even now. It's almost like, where's success? When's it happening? When's the dough coming in? When's the prestige and all this crap? When's all that crap coming? You know what I mean? When is it gonna feel good? That stuff. So I always felt so rushed in life. Like, you need to hurry up, go, keep moving. So I would just keep moving until I was exhausted, and then I'd be forced to stop, and then I'd do it all over again. I'd be like, screw it, I'm ready, go. Even if I'm not, pretend you are. You're gonna be fine. That's one of the rough things. Like, I always compared myself to other people, so I'd see what they were doing, and I was just kind of like, I don't have that. I don't do that. I don't know that. And I just felt really behind. As mature as I always felt like an old lady out of touch. Like, all the younger people doing this, and then there's me, and I don't know what's happening. I always felt out of touch. I don't know. I didn't understand what people even in my own grade were doing, or people my own age, and I was just kind of like, okay. And I would watch people to try to figure out what normal people do so I could mimic them and pretend I'm normal when I didn't feel normal. It was really sad, but that's what I did. Another thing is, I'm a person, like with this video and why I'm forcing myself to do it now, I procrastinate a lot. It's so bad. It's not even funny. But I procrastinate a lot, and I try to ignore issues until life forces me to see otherwise. So essentially, I don't want to handle things like if you want to go around or over, not through. It's one of those situations where I just didn't want to go through with it. There's certain things I'm just like, oh, I just can't adult today. You know what I'm saying? I just can't handle this. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that the next day. I'll do that 20 years from now. I don't care. I don't want to do it now. I just kept pushing things off. Even with school, I was so exhausted. I would push it off, and I'd be like, I can't handle this right now, so I pushed it off, and then I'd have to do it at like 3 a.m. and I was like, oh no, and then I had to finish it. Too bad for you gotta finish it now because it's due tomorrow. That happens a lot for small things, big things, everything in between. Procrastination's been an issue. Another thing, like I mentioned before, with protecting myself is I had to be my own hero. I always imagined that someone else would save me, especially a guy would save me. Someone romantic would come, sweep me away, and everything would be fine. It's all good. I've noticed the way I viewed some other people's lives was that they always had somebody external to help them with everything. I do have a family, thankfully. You know, not everybody has a good relationship with their family or anything. I do have that. It's not like I don't have anybody. But at the same time, I didn't have someone who was like the same page as me. I had a lot of trouble finding someone on the same page to help me with things and who I felt comfortable enough talking to very frankly about things, to get perspectives and advice. I just felt like I didn't have that person. So I always felt I had to be that person, but I never felt good enough to be that person. So I was demanding this of myself when I didn't know what else to do. So I would look around and be like, why does that dipshit get somebody to help and I'm here by myself? It didn't feel fair at all. I've heard people say it's because you can handle it. You can handle being by yourself. And I'm like, can I though? Do I do a good job? Are you sure? Yeah, I can handle it, but do I do it well? Probably not. At least not always. Not always. So I just felt like I always had to do the work myself. I had to put in everything myself. I had to save myself from every situation, either by shutting up, being quiet, listening, just figuring it out, watching people, trying to figure out how to pretend to be one of them, and just, I don't know, it just seemed like no one cared or understood me enough to help. So I was very lonely a lot because I just never felt like there was someone on the same page who could help me with anything, or whose advice I cared about enough to follow, or who understood the way I am enough to really help put me on my feet. So I always felt like I was by myself, and I had to put myself on my feet. When I fell down, I had to take my own hand, pull me up, and just keep going by myself. So loneliness has always been like a huge, huge struggle. Just not feeling like someone understands, not feeling like someone cares enough to understand or to help you, or someone, maybe it's just beyond them. They just can't. They're not that type of person. So I always just felt like I didn't have that type of person in reach. And I was always searching for that person. And I didn't find that person in anyone really except myself. That's one of the reasons why I latched onto that young man so much, is because I thought maybe he could be it. Another thing I had struggles with was cycles. So I would be stuck, or at least I felt like I was stuck in loops of certain behaviors. So for example, like I mentioned, being with the creepy old men thoughts, the excessive daydreaming about like sex or being amazing and not feeling like I could be like that, the forced masturbation, that kind of stuff, over and over again. I would do this so often, and it would always be my crutch. And any type of bad time when I wanted to go around and not through, instant in my head, whatever I wanted to think in my head, that's where I would go. That would be my refuge. But the thing is, it's not like I was totally unaware that these patterns were detrimental. I knew they were. I saw them as patterns. I knew they were repeating, and I knew I had to stop them. But I didn't know how, one. And two, I didn't... Excuse the noise in the background, someone's playing a video game. But I'm just going to keep trudging because this is a long video and I really want to get it done today. I'm sorry. So it's going to be awful with the background noise, but hopefully I'm loud enough. We'll be all right. But I saw these patterns and these cycles, and like the creepy guys looking at me grossly with lust in their eyes and things, like, oh, I just saw that all the time. And I was just like, why am I meeting the same person, same type of person all the time, over and over and over again? I saw the pattern. I saw what I was doing to myself. I just didn't know how to stop it, and I didn't know if I wanted to stop it, if that makes sense, because I wanted to be better, but at the same time I was scared that I wouldn't be, or that I couldn't be, or how painful it was going to be to get there, or how long, or what if I die before I get better, or anything. It was a really, I get stuck in my fears very much, and that was one of the repeating patterns. So the fear kind of kept me in the loop. So those were some of my negative attributes. But now I want to go on the lighter end of the spectrum because we had enough crap, I think. And I think this is a very important part that I put more in my daydreamy aspect of Come Find Me with the Girl from the Ocean, as opposed to just saying it out to you. So that's why I really want to stress some of the ways that I began to feel better, some of the ways I began to heal a little bit, at least my journey. Obviously, everybody is different. Who wants to hear that? You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're so different, you can't follow the path I followed, so what good is this for you? But that's not what I mean. It's literally, I'm just going to tell you how it worked for me, how it kind of started for me, or how I saw it. And hopefully, if you need it, take what you need. If you think this will help you, or even if you don't think it'll help you, if you want to try it, try it. Hopefully it will help you and lead to better things. I want to acknowledge first off that healing is difficult, messy, and unclear. It is a hard process. So healing sounds all wonderful and everything. That word healing just sounds healing in and of itself, but healing is hard. It's freaking hard. And one of the worst parts for me is that there's really no full end result. It really is happening. It's still happening, and it's still gonna happen pretty much until I'm dead, I'm assuming. I don't know what happens after that. Let's not think about that. But even to this day, I'm not fully healed because it's an experience and it's shaped me so much. I really don't think it'll ever be fully done. Like, it'll always be a scar. I think it'll always be a scar, but it's a scar that feels better. It doesn't hurt like it used to. You know what I mean? At least for me, I feel better about it than I used to, at least at this time, thankfully. So it's better to feel better than to feel as shit as I did back then. So the very first thing that saved me through the whole thing, then beginning to now, is writing. Writing saved me. I literally would have been dead without it. It helped me write out my anger and my aggression. It helped clear up some confusion because it's like my subconscious is speaking to me and I'm putting it to the forefront so that I can consciously think of it. It always helped me clear up some confusion. It helped me clarify certain things, especially things that I've been mulling over for so long. I'm like driving myself crazy, and then I finally write it down. I'm like, oh, it was that easy. Okay. It also helped me get the crazy out without me fully doing the crazy. It's getting the energy out in a different form, so I could write about rape or murder or something and pretend it was me, but I'm pretending. I'm not actually doing it. There is a huge difference between thoughts and actions. There really is. They are linked. They can lead one to the other for sure, but it takes a lot of energy to get them there, to bridge that gap, at least in my experience. So it helped really get the crazy out. Whenever I felt like psychotic, I would just write it down, just get it out. Like, so anyone reading my stuff off the street must be like, whoa, what is wrong with this one? But guess what? This one's gonna act more normal now because I wrote it out. So thank the page. It also was a great way for me to speak even in my silence. So although I was silent for so long and for so many years and didn't say anything, even to my family for a long time, it helped me get it out in a different way than me speaking. And because it's easier for me to write it down than to say it, it gave me an alternative way to get my point across. Also, words in general are phenomenal. They help you understand the world and what you're feeling, especially feelings. Feelings are freaking hard, man. They're freaking hard. And they're hard to pinpoint. So when writers get it, you're like, yes, you genius, you're right. That's exactly it. How'd you know? Like, it's unreal that they can get the right words. So for me, words help me in general because if I didn't know the word intercourse, if I didn't learn that in school, I never would have spoke because I didn't know how to say it because I didn't want to go into detail. I didn't know what happened to me. I didn't even know what was going on. So because I was so confused, how was I going to get it out? You know what I mean? Like, if you're confused, your audience is confused, right? So how are you going to do that without having that keyword that gets the point across without going into painful detail? So words, huge. That was my number one and still my number one. However, my writing, a lot of it helped me survive, which is great because I wouldn't be here if I didn't have that. But it didn't take me beyond that at the time. what really kick-started me beyond the survival stage was ASMR. Now, if you're on this channel, you're probably an ASMR fan, but if you're not, it stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, which is just a really fancy-ass way of saying that you get chills or tingles from certain external stimuli. So, for example, if I go like this, you might actually almost feel the way my hand feels, like on your own self, and you can get chills. I like to think of it as like when you listen to really good music and you get chills and you're like, ooh, you know what I mean? And it feels good. That's kind of the same way, except it's usually very relaxing, and it's taken usually as a relaxation technique for someone to induce ASMR in you to get those tingles to happen. I started with ASMR in about 2011, 2012, somewhere around there in the summer. I had just started college or was about to start college. I forget which one it is. It might be 2012. I keep thinking 2011, but I could be wrong. It could be 2012. One of those. And I actually felt good that day for some reason. And I was just like, you know what? I know I'm a stress ball and I need relaxation. So I want to find something on YouTube to find something to relax me. So I looked up something about relaxation and I was trying to find something. And then I found this woman who did ASMR. And I'd never heard of ASMR before. That was ASMR as a very public, talked about thing. It was very new then, very new. So I was there, not fully in the beginning, but still in its infancy, and I showed up as a fan. So it took a long time. I started listening to all these videos, more people were popping up to be ASMR artists or people who give you those tingles, and I started watching and I loved it so much because I finally found a people, which was great. That was the first time I've ever found a people that get me, because I always had ASMR, but I didn't really think to talk about it or anything. I would just enjoy it and just be like, oh, I'm a weirdo, whatever, and just kind of leave it at that. But no, other people enjoy it too, and it's a thing, and that's great. It was validating. It was so nice to see other people. And then some of these ASMRs, they tell you things about their lives and their feelings about things, and they're just so honest with you with certain things, and you're just like, I freaking love you. Like, thank you. It's so refreshing. It's so refreshing. You don't always get that in real life or like face-to-face conversations, and you don't always have that opportunity. So this is a different way to do it, through video with each other, from people from all over the world. And I was like astonished. People from all over the world. I listened to people speaking in Russian, in Spanish, in Greek, and like all these different languages all over the world. It's amazing. It's great. It's great. That was one of the best things that ever happened, was learning that ASMR existed and that people were similar to me. I want to tell you a funny story about ASMR though, because in the beginning, like I said, it was very new. So even when I actually did know about ASMR at this time, but I was watching QVC, which if you don't know, it's a shopping channel, and someone was trying to sell a bed, like a bed, like comforter or something, and she was rubbing her hands on the comforter, and I was like, oh my god, it's freaking great. I was loving it, okay? I was loving it. I looked like a creep. I was like freaking loving this woman touching this bed. And ASMR, when you say it like that, it sounds bad. It's really not. It's really not. I made it sound worse than it is. But I'm sure that to outside people who don't get ASMR and or people who don't understand ASMR probably see it that way. But I was in my parents' room and I was watching their TV, and that's where I was watching it, because I think I was like flipping through the channel trying to find something, and I saw that and I was like, whoa, I love it. And someone walked in. I changed the channel so fast, as if it was porn. Like, it was ridiculous. I literally didn't want to explain why I was enjoying watching QVC for no reason at all when I wasn't gonna buy anything. But that was just a funny anecdote I just wanted to share. ASMR really started it all, and one of the reasons besides finding my people, that was huge. Finding a people, I can't even tell you how like amazing that is to a loner. That's amazing. It really is. It's empowering. It's nice. But one of the best things too, that they introduced me to so much. That's probably one of the best things too, is not only did I find a people, but they're so enlightened in their own way that they like research different things and they share different things with you. Like, for instance, one of the best things they shared with me was holistic healing. And holistic healing is kind of my next, what helped me. But it links in with ASMR, because ASMR introduced me to this, because I didn't even know it existed. So one of the things that it introduced to me was Reiki, which is energy healing, usually through your hands. That was the first time I ever heard of Reiki. I never heard of it in my life until then. And I wanted to learn it because they were talking about it and it sounded healing and like it could help me with my fucked upness. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna learn it then. So like I jumped to learning it instead of like, I tried it once, fell in love because it was amazing. And then I just went the extreme way and I just wanted to learn it. And then I learned how to do it for others and for myself. Nothing like having someone else do it though, gotta say. There's nothing else like having someone else take care of you like that. It's nice. But one of the best things about holistic healing in general, there's so many modalities with holistic healing, so many different ways to do it. But energy healing really speaks to me in particular. Energy and sound healing, I love both of them. They both speak to me very well. But the best thing about holistic healing that I found for me was that it's empowering. That's the best thing, because there's nothing against being Roman Catholic, okay? But when I was raised in a very strict Roman Catholic household, it was very emphasized that you need to talk to God and get rid of your sins. If you die before you confess, you're going to hell. You know what I mean? So it wasn't very empowering. It felt like you're at the mercy of God, right? Which we are, but like at the same time, it's saying I don't have a choice on like anything at all. It's not very empowering at all. So at least not the way I took it. So I think the biggest way to heal is to get empowered in some way, whatever way works for you. And when I say empowered, I'm not saying like you want to crush everybody, because that's not empowerment. That's fake. It's false empowerment. That's just you're working out of your hurt, not out of your light. You know what I mean? You're not working out of a good place. Not like I haven't done that, but that's not empowering. What's empowering is you know you can do something, but you choose whether you want to or not. It's not somebody else telling you you have to do it this way, or you're feeling pressured to do it one way or another. You know, I don't have to. I'm not gonna. Or I don't feel like it. I'm okay. I'll wait. You know, I'll do it for myself. I can do it. You know what I mean? Knowing that you have choices blew my mind. And it's one of those things that's weird, because it's almost like I needed to be told that I can think for myself. Like, it's sad to say, it sounds sick to say, but it's kind of true. And I think college really helped me with thinking for myself anyway. So when people are like, oh, what's the point of college? You didn't get a job. I didn't get a job. I have a huge, another traumatizing story with that and my after college experience. But regardless of that, it literally was just, even now, I'm still not fully into what I graduated for. Like my major, I had 2 majors. I was elementary education and history. And I tried the elementary education and I hated it. So I didn't do it anymore. But I love history. I just can't find a job with it. It is what it is. But that's okay. I don't consider my college education a waste at all. And I'm not saying like people who don't like school, like I have siblings who don't like school, and that's okay. I'm not saying you have to go to college. I'm just saying I found it beneficial for me because it really taught me to, especially history, really gave me the lens of looking through the bullshit. You know what I mean? Finding what they want you to think, or the way they're bent, seeing their lens, but also keeping your own open, you know what I mean? So you can try to find the truth in all the opinions, you know what I mean? So I found it empowering, and I found it useful to figure out how to think for myself. And I think with holistic healing, it was saying, I'm not a victim of my circumstances. I didn't do anything to deserve what happened to me. It gave me the power of choice. It helped me learn kind of what isn't my fault and what is. It's not saying that nothing's my fault, because damn straight, this is guilty of some things, okay? Like, we all do bad things. We've all done bad things. We think bad things. We all do it, which is not okay, but we do it. And for the most part, it's understandable why, especially when you know the cause for the effect. But I found it amazing. It blew my mind that someone was telling me, they were validating, it's not your fault, and you can do something about this. You don't have to replay this crap in your head all the time. You don't have to feel like nobody gives a shit about you, or that there's no way to heal, there's no way to fix this. Obviously it happened, I can't stop it. But it's over, but it's not over too. But at the same time, I can kind of heal my reactions to it and learn how to mature my reactions to things and try to learn what emotions are and how to deal with them. Especially that anger, though. Still working on that one. But I found it super helpful. Like for Reiki, the first thing I did was I was at the end of my rope when I went to Reiki. Like I was done. I was ready to throw in the towel and be like, life, I'm done. No, I don't want to do this anymore. And when the smartest said, Reiki's a thing, energy healing, and I looked into it because I didn't want to get duped. It's not like you can't get duped from anybody or anywhere, but holistic healing's harder, like especially energy work, because it's hard to, it's not necessarily physical in the sense that you usually can't really see it. So it's easier to discount or easier to fake. I thought I was going to meet a quack, essentially. I thought I was going to meet somebody who was lying to me and that this wasn't going to work. But I was so desperate. And I was just like, I need this to work. Please work. Please work. But at the same time, I kept a distance. I didn't force myself for it to work. You know what I mean? I did not force myself for it to work. And I know because I've had multiple Reiki sessions and it's amazing every time. It's not that. It's not me forcing that perception on myself. It was me just really, really hoping to God that this was going to work because I couldn't take it anymore and I needed something to help. So I researched a bunch of places. I went online and I looked up different places near me and I found a website that looked good. It was promising. She was very transparent with her pricing, what's going to be included, all that stuff. So she was very transparent and I appreciated the honesty very, very much. We set up an appointment. I went in and I got my Reiki session done. So she took me aside for a little bit. We sat together and she explained. She's like, do you know what Reiki is? This is your first time. And I was explaining, this is my first time. I did look into it a little bit and I explained what I knew. And she looked surprised that I even knew anything. And I was like, yeah, I researched it. I was not going to come in here and dumb, not knowing anything. There's nothing wrong with that, just trying it for trying's sake. But I didn't want to get duped. So I was like, no, I'm researching this. And not like I can't get duped from bad research or whatever, but you know what I mean. I went in there. I think you know what I mean. I went in there trying to be educated best way I could. So she explained it to me, what was going to happen, things like that. And then she put me on I went on a massage table. She asked if I want a blanket. And I'm like, yes, because especially if she goes touching my feet, I was like, what if my socks are dirty? I don't know. Like, you really want to touch that? Like, no. I was like, no, it's courteous. Just put the blanket on me. And so we went with that. She had a little lavender, like, bag. I said I don't like strong scents because I hate strong scents. Like, I do. Perfumes, colognes, I hate it all. I make exceptions, but for the most part, I don't like it. And she had like a lavender bag. It had a little lavender scent. I was like, it's subtle. Like, I don't care. Just put it on my eyes. It's fine. So she had it on my eyes, and I had a little bit of a space so I could see just a little bit. So I had my eyes closed most of the time, but like every once in a while I would peek just to see what was going on. But essentially, for this type of Reiki, there are different types, but she was doing a very traditional type. And it's laying of the hands, which means she would hold certain energy centers on my body to energize it, get rid of anything that shouldn't be there that's associated with it. So for example, your throat chakra, my throat was very blocked. Your throat is the area where you speak your truth. It's where you express yourself. It's how you express yourself, right? You use your voice to talk, to express yourself. That's one way to do it. So that's your form of expression. So when you feel like you can't say what you want to say, or you feel like no one will understand you, this tends to get blocked. And I had a very hard time swallowing. And I still do sometimes like that. I have a hard time swallowing because she even described it as you literally swallow your words. Like you want to say it, but you don't. So you swallow it, and that's not good. So the way I described my first Reiki session ever was I felt like I was getting exorcised of a demon. Like, it felt like an exorcism. I've never been through an exorcism, thank God, and I hope I never do, but that's how I likened it to, because it was rough, but it was amazing. As awful as that sounds, like, why is it rough and amazing? Because at the time it was hard. When she went over my throat, I was swallowing. I thought I was gonna choke on my own spit. Like, I was having so much trouble breathing, but I'm shy, so I was like sitting there just try to breathe, please. It'll be fine. I had trouble with certain parts, and especially the throat. I had so much trouble with that. And when she finally was done, I felt so light. I felt light. I've never felt light in my life until that point. I didn't know I could feel light. It was beautiful. I didn't even complain when I was driving home, and I bitched like you wouldn't believe when I drive home. Literally nothing. I was like so happy. So happy. I felt so good. I've never felt like, and I was like, thank you God, I have something I can go to that helps me. Something that genuinely helps me. And then I went to her for a lot of workshops and things that kind of led to me learning about different things. And I'm a person, I don't know, because I have the responsibility fear. I don't want to mess it up, and I like put too much responsibility and expectations on myself. I usually don't go all the way with stuff all the time, which is weird. I work really hard, but I don't go all the way sometimes. So for example, I would attend, after going to Reiki, I would attend workshops, like holistic healing workshops. I went to some sound healing, which I learned through ASMR as well. And I can't even tell you how good that crap is. It's amazing. It's better you can hear it online too, like sound healing, which is still beneficial, but there's nothing like in person. Like even with Reiki, you can do distance Reiki. So for example, if I did it, like I have some videos where I did Reiki for you, and I was trying my best to actually send it to you, which it does. It does work. It's from a distance. I have tried distance healing with someone else. There was someone, I had been to what's called a Reiki share, which is you practice Reiki on other people, essentially, like other Reiki practitioners at different levels and things like that, just to get yourself to practice. You can also practice on the public. It depends on how the event is set up, but generally you're practicing. And we were asked by this woman, she's like, I have a friend who's not doing well. He's in the hospital, and I want you to send him healing. So we wrote his name on a piece of paper, and we had it between our hands. We did all our Reiki stuff. We sent him healing. And then she told us after, what do you think is wrong with him? And we had to say what we thought was wrong. And we don't even know this man. I told her a couple areas, like, energetically where I felt it, but I also told her, like, the heart is where it is. It hurts bad. Like, I felt it myself. It hurt so bad. And I was like, oh, this poor man, this hurts so bad. He had heart failure, apparently. This poor man, I don't know if he's okay to this day. I hope he is, but that hurt real bad. So this poor man went through like crap. But we could feel that from a distance. So distance healing, I believe it, yes, is real. But there's nothing like being with a person face to face. I really believe that you should feel very comfortable with who you're with. You should feel like you vibe with them very well. You know what I mean? Like they're one of your people. So if you don't feel like a practitioner is one of your people, then I do suggest trying other people to find where you fit. Obviously it may not be your thing, which is fine, but at the same time I encourage those, like if you did have an unfortunate experience, thank God I had a good experience the first time, because it would have really delayed me progressing if it was a bad time. But thankfully I had a good practitioner. I'm grateful that she's there and that she was able to help me at the time I really needed it. But it's nice to know I have something to go to, you know what I mean? And if you don't have a good experience, if you could, there's somebody you'll mesh with, pretty sure. You'll find somebody you can mesh with. But anyway, like I was saying, so I attended workshops and I listened to like gurus like Eckhart Tolle, Alan Watts, people who are great, almost like philosophers essentially, who are enlightened. You can believe what you want with the enlightened thing. That's up for grabs. Somebody claiming they're enlightened, you know what I mean? I'm a skeptic myself, so I'm a little, I don't know, you could just be saying that, dude. But at the same time, they say a lot of truths, or that things that resonate enough where I think they're truths. So I do vibe with some of the things they say. So I listened to some of them. I read some of their books. At least Eckhart Tolle, I read a lot of his books. I learned a little bit about astrology. I actually have an online course that I'm doing now for it. I don't prefer online courses, but I don't know anyone around me who teaches that, so I'm doing it online. And I looked into palmistry a little bit. I was gonna take a class, but I'm an idiot and I didn't go. And I had a dream that I got shot in the face, and I was like, oh, I probably should have went. But that's okay. Neither here nor there. I read a book about it, though, at least. And one of the best things, though, is the sound healing, too, Reiki and sound healing, like the energy healing and sound healing to me works so well. Music is magic, like it straight up is. The vibrations, just feeling vibrations is like phenomenal. Good vibrations, not like a freaking earthquake or something. I'm talking like good stuff. Like you're listening to a tuning, like just feeling a tuning fork. Or sometimes they'll put crystal bowls on top of your stomach and they'll just hit it, and then you just feel a vibration through your body. Or you just hear it from a distance and you rock with it. You know what I mean? It's so nice. It's so nice. Highly recommend. I didn't really go too deep into any of these things, but at the very least I like to dabble in it. I like to try different things, which is better than the nothing that I did for a long time. At least the nothing in real life. Everything happened in my head, so at least I'm actually like doing things now, you know what I mean? Pretty proud of myself. Another thing is, because I did the holistic healing and it showed me that I can be empowered. Me, random little me, can be empowered, you know what I mean, and can do things for myself and make my own decisions regardless of what society says or what anybody says. I can do it, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily from that place of I have to do it to look good or whatever it is. It's more I want to do it, you know what I mean, and I have the power to make it happen, which is beautiful. Because of that empowerment, I was able to get the confidence to do something that I didn't think I would ever do, which is to dance. Now, there was a woman I remember online who said competence equals confidence. She's freaking right. So you kind of need to prove to yourself that you can do it, so that you know you can do it. So even if you're struggling with something, you know eventually you're gonna get it. Like you're gonna get it. The confidence piece is huge with the confidence thing. Once you know you're good at something, like it feels good and it shows. It shines right out of you when you know you can do something right. You know what I mean? So you kind of have to get to that point where you're like, I can do this. I've proven to me, skeptic me, that I can do this and I can do it right. So I 100% agree with her with that. And this is a really weird thing. I'm going to mention it anyway. But I always felt like inside that I was a dancer, because I would always feel like whenever I'd hear music or I'm like at a party or something and I'm hearing the music, I'm like dancing on the inside, but I never showed it on the outside. So I'm like stoic on the outside, but inside I'm like jamming. So I always felt like my spirit wanted to dance, like I want to dance, but I was so embarrassed, and when people are there I freeze like a rabbit, so I didn't know how to dance. Didn't feel confident. I didn't feel competent in it because I moved like a doofus, so like I didn't think I could do it, so I didn't want to do it. Like I wanted to, but I didn't think I could, you know what I mean? It was fear again. I didn't want to like make myself look like an idiot because I felt like an idiot. Even when I was alone, I can't just turn on music and start dancing. I can now I can do it. I couldn't do it then. When I was younger, you could put music on, you could put anything on. I want to dance, I want to jam, but if I did it even a little bit, like a little bop, I felt stupid. I would stop. I just wouldn't do it. It's so sad, but I didn't do it. I felt like I was being watched. I didn't like it. I felt dumb. I was like, what if someone walks in and actually sees me jamming out, see me having a good time? What is this? I don't want this. So I didn't do it. I didn't give myself permission to try new things. I didn't allow myself to fail or to succeed. I didn't allow myself to do anything, really, because I was trying to protect myself from it all, because I know it hurts. And after I kind of got that empowerment boost from holistic healing, ASMR, writing, and all that all together, I decided I want to look for dance studios nearby. So I started looking into it. I told one of my siblings about it, and he's actually the reason why I ended up doing it, because I would have kept pushing it off. But then one day he's like, well, I take classes near this. He took classes for something else. And he's like, well, near me there's a dance studio. It was one of the studios you were looking at, and they have a free class orientation if you want to do it. Free class, just to try it. You can do free in whatever genre that's available to you, because I was an adult at the time, because I started dancing at 26 years old, and I was almost 27. I was a couple of months shy of 27. So it was pretty recently, because I'm only 28 now. And he said that they have the free class, and I was like, this is a gift. Like, I'm being told you have a free damn class. Like, I'm gonna go. So I almost groaned inside. I was like, I'm scared as shit, but at the same time, this is getting handed to me. I'm going. This is a sign I'm getting in there. So I did. I contacted them. I looked at their website. I like freakishly stalked the website, made sure I understood everything, and it was kind of scary with all the obligations financially and stuff, and I was a little scared about it, but I was just like, I'm gonna do it anyway. So I ended up doing hip-hop and ballet, but I'm gonna back up a little bit because I want to show you why I was so scared. Partially it wasn't just confidence, it was literally because I was incompetent. And it's not like I'm a great dancer now, man, but like I'm better than I was. But one of the things was because I made myself so small in everything. I made myself physically small too. Like I'm a small woman anyway, like short and skinny, like I'm just petite. But it's not even just petite, I literally made myself small. Like when people were around, I would just like curl up in myself so badly, and I would just be stiff. I was so stiff. So, you know, most kids would like run around and play and so, and I did some of that, but like once I got a little older, once like 4th, 5th grade or something, I feel too old for that and like stupid, so you don't do it. I wanted to so badly, but I was just like, no, I'm not gonna do it. You just walk around with the girls and talk, and you're like, this is stupid. The boys are running around here talking. What the frick is this? But that's what happened. So I wasn't physically fit, and I didn't know how to be, and I was too embarrassed to exercise in front of people, so I didn't know what to do. Thank God for the internet, because I found videos online on YouTube where people teach you how to do yoga and Pilates. So I'm gonna say I'm not affiliated with them or anything. I hope they don't mind that I throw them out there, but they're called Boho Beautiful. They are a couple who teach yoga and Pilates online, and they travel all over the world and have beautiful settings, beautiful like camera angles. Like they do a great job with it, and their exercises are great. They're intense, but they're great. And I dabbled a little bit on YouTube with different teachers at first before I found Boho Beautiful, but I didn't really like it. Like, it helped introduce me to the terminology of yoga, because if I didn't know the term, I kept staring at the screen. I'm like doing downward facing dog, and I'm like shoving my head up trying to see what the frick's going on, because I'm like, am I doing it right? I don't know. It's hard when you're doing it online versus somebody correcting you, but I was too shy to be corrected, and I'm not the richest person in the world. I couldn't really do it, so I did it at home. But thankfully, those other people, I did at least 2 other different teachers, and it was like the same crap over and over again. I was like, I'm bored. I need something else. And I found Boho Beautiful through that. It was recommended to me, and I was like, thank God. Love them. I follow their videos almost pretty much every day. So it helps tremendously. It helped me so much because I made myself so small, I couldn't put my hands over my head. That sounds stupid for an adult not being able to put their hands over their head who has nothing physically wrong with them, but I couldn't. I'm gonna try to show you. Kind of this, but going like up, like above my head, I couldn't freaking do it. My arms would get stuck. I was like stuck here. I couldn't push back. I couldn't open my chest. Nothing. I couldn't stretch. I didn't stretch. I was so little and into myself and so stiff. I was so stiff. And I felt so embarrassed. So when I decided I wanted to do dance, before I was told about the orientation, thank God, I exercised at home, because I was like, I don't want to look like an idiot. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna exercise and hope I'm not pathetic when I go in there. So that's pretty much what I did. It helped tremendously. They both help each other. Like, dance helps me with yoga, and Pilates and yoga help me with dance. They help each other, which is great. That was a struggle. Physicality for me is hard. I was so unfit, and I remember getting so angry. I would try to do those poses, and they hurt so bad, and I was like wanting to punch the instructor, because I was just like, this hurts, what the fuck. But I kept doing it because I wanted to get better, so I was just like, well, whatever, lady, I hope you know what you're talking about. And then I did get better. Like, it took a really long freaking time, but like, it did get better. And then when my brother told me about the class, I was like, I felt better, and I was like, yeah, okay. I felt more confident. I could see the improvement. I could freaking do it, people. I could do it, and I could go back, and I could move, and I was like, I have range of motion now. That's great. Let's do this. Let's dance. So I decided to do dance. One of the reasons too, besides like feeling like I always kind of had that soul that wanted to dance, was that I wanted to be more aware of my body, because I was always in my head, and I know I'm like that, I wanted to feel what it feels like to be in my body. That sounds weird, but I was so out of my body, it's not even funny. You probably touch me when I'm in my head and I wouldn't even know. I was just so out of touch with myself, my physical self. So I wanted something that it's so body-based that you have to be aware of yourself. And I wanted to learn how to do that, how to be competent with my body, how to use it well. So I thought exercising and dancing would kind of help with the fitness aspect, but I want to dance more for like that mind-body connection to happen. So the reason I did hip hop and ballet is, one, it's very difficult to find an adult class for anything, really. It's so sad. It's so hard to find something for you as an adult to try to learn, especially when you're a beginner, and I was definitely a beginner. No experience ever. I like did no extracurriculars like ever, so I had no idea what I was doing. So really, hip hop and ballet kind of are the only things that I found around me that were offered to adults. In particular, this studio thankfully was offered the hours I needed after work. So after work, during a weekday, booking in commute time and all that, I pretty much couldn't eat, so I was starving, but I could go directly to dance after work, which is what I did. Some other studios, they had awful hours. They're like, 4 p.m. I'm sorry, I'm still working at 4 p.m. Like, what kind of, like, some adults don't work at that time, but I do. So that didn't help me at all. But whatever. I went to this studio, and I did want 2 types of dance, and I did want them to be drastically different. And that's one of the other reasons why hip hop and ballet was a thing. I wanted ballet because that's like the classical way to get your feet wet kind of thing and like really control your body. I really wanted that control. So ballet, that was what ballet was for, and hip hop was meant to be the opposite, so that I would learn how to be loose, because I can't be loose to save my life. My hip hop teachers could tell you that, I'm pretty sure, if they were going to tell the truth, because I can't be loose to save my life. I am so uptight. It's unreal. But I want to be looser. I don't want to be so uptight anymore. So I wanted to try something like hip hop. It really teaches you to pay attention to what your body's asking for, to how much your body is willing to push, how much it can push, how much when you should stop, when you should keep pushing. You know what I mean? So it kind of helps with the perfectionism too, because you know how far you can push, so you don't hurt yourself. But if you push too hard, you're gonna hurt yourself. So it really has you pay attention to your body. It really helps to know that your body can do so many beautiful things, and that you can be flexible. I'm not super flexible, and I'm way more flexible than I used to be. Like, I never used to be able to touch my toes. I can go all the way to the floor now. Look at me go, you know? It's nice to know that you can do that now when you couldn't before. Other people may not notice, but I notice. I see the progress, and that helps tremendously. Me seeing my own progress helps absolutely tremendously. Next thing that really helped, besides movement, dance, was laughter. Laughter helps a lot. It really does. It releases, like, even if we're not talking chemical releasing of whatever that makes you happy and all that, you're just getting it out. You're just letting it out. Like, I don't always laugh because something's funny. Sometimes I laugh because it's sad. I laugh for weird things now. I never used to. I used to just hold everything in and just not laugh. But laughter feels good, you know, when you just let it out. And I think laughter really helps with gratitude too, seeing something through like fresher eyes, you know what I mean? So for example, what part of the holistic healing thing is, they always stress gratitude, like be grateful for what you have. It's looking at something in a more positive light. I remember there was one time, I want to travel. That's one of the things I want to do. I remember thinking to myself one day, I was looking at like my state, the state where I live, and I always thought it wasn't that pretty. It's hard to look at it with fresh eyes when you see it every day. But I remember looking at it and being like, if I can't find this place where I live now pretty, I could go anywhere in the world. It could be the most stunning sight. I could see the freaking Aurora Borealis, and I still say there was something wrong with it. I would not be happy to see it. Isn't that sad? Like, I could have seen the most beautiful, breathtaking sight, and I still wouldn't be happy. So one day it just clicked, and I understood the gratitude thing a little better, because I was like, Well, guess what? You're gonna, here I go parenting myself again. But I was just like, you know what? You're gonna look every day at something outside. You're gonna look at your circumstances and you're gonna see something that's good. For the most part, for me, I love trees and I love the sky. The sky is the biggest. I love sunsets. I always loved. Like when I was a kid, I would always draw little sunsets over hills and crap, like all the time. That'd be like the only thing I could kind of sort of draw. And I just love the sky. So it's not like I'm like super into like the sciencey aspect of it. It's just more like I just like it's pretty. I like looking at it. Like it's nice. You know what I mean? So when I drive to work, one of the things I do in the morning and when I come home is I look at the sky and I look at how the trees against the highway, like as I'm coming to and from, hit the sky. And I try to see the beauty in it. Like I knew that I needed a kind of a fresh pair of eyes to some degree, that my negative Nelly stance is valid. It's not like I don't know bad happens in the world, because I definitely damn do, but it's not all bad too. You know what I mean? There's the extremist thing like where I want to say it's all bad, but it's not, thankfully. It gives a more positive outlook. So when you're laughing all the time about like stupid crap, like you do something wrong and you're just like, oh, oops. And you just laugh about it, it feels better. Also, I notice because of my perfectionistic tendencies, when I laugh at a mistake I make, it makes it better. Other people tend to be more lenient about that mistake because I take it more lightly myself. So it's kind of like they gauge what they should do based on what I do. So if I'm harsh on myself, they're probably gonna think, wow, what an idiot for fucking up. You know what I mean? Like, but if I'm laughing about it and I'm like, oopsies, but not like in an irresponsible way, just like, oh, I made a boo-boo, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a human being, I screw up too, you know, and you just laugh about it, it tends to go off better and then when you don't. Another thing that's important for any kind of healing journey in particular is time. I probably stress people out just saying that word, but time is hard. It's a hard thing, but you definitely have to give yourself time, and that's one of the hardest things too in society, especially where I live. It's very rush. We also don't know how long we have either. This is part of being real. We're gonna die someday, people. So as awful as that is, we don't know how much time we have left. And even being young doesn't mean you're going to live forever. Anything can happen at any point, which is stressful, but there's nothing you can do about it, really, at this point. So you kind of just have to hope for the best. But time is necessary for healing. So it's one of those things, if somebody's in a bad way, you kind of force them out of it. You want to be like, feel better. You know, you want to help them for yourself. You want to feel better. But you need the time. You need it. So when people try to force that healing, or even you try to force your own healing, it's not going to work. You're probably going to end up setting yourself back, if anything, which is stressful. But even if you don't set yourself back, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. You have to take the time. It sucks. You don't know how much time you need, but it's one of those things where you'll know when you know. And you may not even know until you look back. That's what happened with me. I kind of looked back and I was like, oh, I'm different. How'd that happen? It just kind of happened. You need the time to do it, though. You need the time to make the mistakes and to screw up and to be like, oh, frick, what happened? And to be like, oh, let me try this instead. You know, you need the time to try and to explore and to experiment. And regardless of who wants to take, they're not taking your time from you. Like, you take the time you need. And it's not always clear what time you need, but time does offer clarity. Time is where you get confidence and hope and where you can get better. Time gives you the gift of chances. It's one of those things where people are like, oh, you can get a second chance. Why just 2? Why just 2? Why do I only get 2? Do you know how many times I screw up? I need way more than 2. Another thing for me that was super helpful, actions. Because I was so in my head, I needed to act, do things with my physical body, actually make things happen, create things, do things, try different things. I wanted to get better at what I really sucked at. So that's one of the reasons why I did dance too, because I'm really naturally terrible with my physical body and being coordinated and all those things. But I gave myself the task of doing better at it and learning how to do better at it and working on balancing myself out. the best way I could, because I'm like, I consider myself a natural intellectual, so it's not like I'm the smartest thing in the world, but I tend to find it easier to be more mentally stimulated and to think, you know, more mentally and more theoretically than action. Like I'm an idea person, not necessarily like bringing it to life kind of person. So I wanted to try to balance myself out with my natural propensity to be intellectual with physical actions and like actually creating things. The next thing I would say is, thankfully I got inspiration from others too. So even though I felt alone very much and I felt very lonely and like nobody understood me and would help me, I did get inspiration from other people. One of the best things is good people. That probably sounds stupid to say, but it's true. When I see someone who's so good, that you can feel them, they're like innocent and so naturally innocent and so happy and just like, they're just good people. They just like help you. They don't even care that you were like scoffing at them. They're like, yeah, I'll give you some food, here you go, you know what I mean, feed you clothing. They don't care, they just do it. And I'm like, whoa, good for you, thank God you're here. Those people give me hope. They show that even when life is really difficult, because a lot of those smiley, happy people are having tough ass lives. I think we all have tough ass lives, but like, let's not compare. Like, we all have tough ass lives, I'm pretty sure, and I'm gonna go with that. But those good people, those people who hold on to hope and still try to make other people feel good and make themselves feel good by just water under the bridge, you know, just like, oh, rolls right off my back, I don't care what you say, you know, that kind of stuff. It shows you what's possible. They show that you can be redeemed, you know what I mean? Because some of those people started off like me, where they were like really messed up and they weren't doing so great and they made a lot of bad decisions, and then all of a sudden they're like super happy and nice, and you're just like, how the hell did that happen? That's amazing. But it shows you it can happen. They show you what's possible. That's one of the biggest things, is people looking at other people, not necessarily to compare yourself, because when you compare yourself, man, you just mess yourself up, but those people show you what you could potentially do too. And it's not saying what someone can do, you can do at the same time. Like, not everybody can do what other people can do, straight up. That's just reality. But you can get inspiration from them and be like, I want something similar to that, or something like that, or I want to feel like that too, you know, or see things in a better way like them. You know what I mean? And then you try to figure it out for yourself and how that works for you. So those good people really can keep you going. And this is important too. When you are trying to heal anything, you will regress. Now, that's not to scare you in the sense, like, don't be like, oh shit, I'm going backwards. You have to go back to go forwards. Like, it's yuck. I hate it too, but we gotta do it. So this is an example that happened to me relatively recently, as in recently from the date of when I'm filming this, because unfortunately this project's taking many months and it's taking longer than I thought. I'm sorry. But relatively recently to when I'm filming this, I regressed again, and it was bad. The funny thing is, it's one of those things where, like, sometimes you get so separated from what happened to you that you forget how bad it is. So it's almost like, well, I'm fine. Yeah, you just get over it. Yep, that's what happened. And when I regressed, and when I say regress, I mean I felt what I felt then. Like, all the negativity, all the hating on myself. I felt all that again. And I was like, oh my God, why is this happening? I felt so bad. I was just like, no, not again. I didn't feel like I was strong enough to handle it. I was like, Jesus, man, I'm weak now. Leave me alone. Like, let me just chill at my old age. But I felt it again, and I was like, oh my God, why? And it lasted for about 2 weeks. So I felt almost exactly what I felt back then again for 2 weeks straight. That doesn't seem like a long time, but it is when you feel like shit. And I was petrified that I was gonna get stuck in it again, in loop. And I was like, oh Lord, no. So what ended up happening was I could see myself doing it. It took a while to be consciously aware of it, but I was aware that, like, I was going down again. I kind of let myself feel it for a while. I was just kind of like, oh, just roll with it, girl. Let's see what happens. We'll see what happens. And by the second week, I was like, you can get out of this. You did this before. You can damn straight do it again. Like, you did it out of nowhere. Just do it again. And I did. Again, I don't know how I did it, I just did. But the good thing about it is it reminded me how bad everything I went through was, because I had forgotten how bad it was. Because I'm so separated from it now, you know what I mean? Time really dulls the pain. So I forgot how much poor little Cassandra hurt. And when I felt it again, I was like, holy crap, I'm struggling as an adult. So poor little kid Cassandra going through that is pretty powerful stuff. And I help with compassion for myself and knowing that I'm not weak and that my little self wasn't weak. My little self was damn straight strong going through that crap. It felt awful. And it reminds me how real it is and how really hard it is to get through. And it can help with compassion for others, because sometimes you forget how bad it feels. And then you go through it and you're like, oh shit, it sucks, man. Yeah, I get it. I get it. I remember. So you try not to take it as lightly when you see it again, you know? Sometimes you might forget again and you have to go through it and you're like, oh shit, oh yeah, I remember again. Stop it. Leave me alone. Thanks. But I definitely got nervous thinking I was going to go through a mental breakdown or something. I felt like I felt so much through my life already and that I didn't want to go through it again. And it wasn't easier to get out of, but I got out of it so much faster, which is great. So I'm showing myself that I can do it. I can get out of it. So this is another one of those like go through it, not over or around it kind of things. It forced me to go through the feelings again, and I had to work through them. I remember telling myself too during it, I was like, you have to go through this, like you're going through. And I pushed myself right through. And I was like, we're going through. We're not going around this one, because this is not going to end if you don't. So I went right through, and somehow I made it on the other side. Another thing, excuse my AC, but another thing is I recognize that we all have our own stories to tell, that we all have our own causes for the effects. But the good part, at least, is at least telling this story makes me feel better. I forget this sometimes, but I'm my own success story. I'm just a little woman who doesn't really matter in the great scheme of things, but I went through so much at such a young age, and I'm not half bad for going through all that, you know what I mean? Not the best person in the world, I'm no saint, but I don't have to be. I'm okay. I feel okay, thankfully, for the most part. I feel okay. There are definitely times I don't. And it's funny because, like, I always think of people saying, like, oh, it happens sometimes. And then I remember thinking when I was a kid, it happens all the time. And I'm sure somebody else is probably saying that to me sometimes, like, all the time. And yeah, sometimes it does happen all the time. And sometimes it does feel like it happens all the time. But good can happen too, and you can make your own good too. That's one of the best things about the empowerment piece, and why the empowerment thing is so important, and why like creative things can really help you get there, and like holistic healing can get you there. And if you don't like that stuff, that's fine. Something can get you there. Something can empower you to know you can power on. Now I'm finally gonna wrap this up, so excuse all the noises as you're hearing, just fling in that background. But I do want to say thank you very much for being here, for listening to me, for listening to my story. That's important, and I really, really appreciate that. Thank you very much.